Hello again, and for today I am going to be delving into another one of my Why I Hate videos to close out the week. And today we're going to be talking about what I perceive to be the myth of diversity. Now, I believe that diversity obviously exists. You see it in the major cities specifically, and you see it in the demographics of the planet, that we are not just one mono species, we are a multivariant of the same species. However, there is a political narrative surrounding diversity. You may have heard it before. It's called diversity is our strength. And you see these kind of globalist politicians, specifically more so people on the left, promoting this narrative that diversity is our strength. And I'm here today to shatter it into the ground because it is a falsehood birthed by ideology. So, what are my points to defend this stance? The first point is that when there is diversity, you see that society fractures. We become separate because of differing shared values. And this happens a lot through immigration. When you see a new population come into a country, they tend to shift the landscape into something that is more accommodating towards them, leaving the native population to the wayside, to the curb. And because of this, people do not get along when there is lots and lots of diversity. This is why the right wing has taken this up as the framework of narratives such as cultural Marxism. It's because when the left promotes that diversity is our strength, and it is blatantly obvious that that is not the case, then it must be pointed out that diversity decreases the shared values between neighbors. The second point, of course, is that as a utopian framework. You see this through the people who talk about diversity. They believe it to be this kind of entertainment-based, let's hold hands and sing John Lennon's Imagine, when instead that couldn't be further from the truth, okay? We are not in a utopia. In fact, I'd say we're inching towards dystopia. And the people who are ushering in this age are inherently utopian. And in their lust for a utopian world, with their utopian worldview, we have now this dystopian hellscape that they have created. And so this is what I mean when I say that diversity is based on a utopian framework. This is not something that we can hold together much longer. Now, here's where I might spend a majority of this commentary, because I believe that everyone is entitled to a homeland, especially if you're mixed race. You should be able to see, the parts of where your ancestry came from. And they should be, majority native population. Obviously, this is a little hard to do in America because, there's not a lot of Native Americans left in the world. However, I think that shit like the reservation system is inherently flawed. And, the only time you get to see Native Americans in a diverse population are as casino owners or actors. And to me, that just goes to show that this diversity thing is a sham. And more importantly, why I do not like this myth of diversity has a lot to do with representation, as the basis of which is forming not only our corporate framework, but the entertainment landscape and the world around us. The left likes to peddle this narrative that we need more representation, we need more female bosses, we need more people of color, which of course is just the politically correct term for colored people, which, is still considered politically incorrect. So I don't know how they got away with that. But with this representation framework and dynamic, you are forcing people who are underqualified into large positions of power. And as a result, mediocrity ensues. And why? It's because you are not hiring based on a meritocracy. You are hiring based on a representation framework. And this is what diversity leads to. It leads to mediocrity. It leads to the fall of nations, if you take a look at it from a demographic perspective. And this is the thing that I hate to keep bringing all my commentaries this week around the Groyper Wars, but it is just exposed how Conservative Inc. has no answers for these questions. They have no solutions to these problems. And because of this, they also play the diversity game. What is Turning Point USA famous for? I'll tell you. It's the Student Action Summit. It's the Young Women Leadership Summit. It's the Young Black Leadership Summit. It's the Young Hispanic Leadership Summit and the Young Asian Leadership Summit. However, there's one key demo missing, and it's because if I were to say it, I'd get called a racist by the left, and they would get called a racist by the left. And when either next week or the week where there is no Groyper War events, I'm going to release a video on why the right accepts the left's moral framework and how ridiculously stupid it is. But by playing into this form of identity politics, the right is basically saying, oh, diversity is our strength. And this is the kind of nonsense that Turning Point USA and organizations like them peddle. They do not have a solution to what happens when diversity, breeds destruction. And because of this is the reality we live in. We are now entering the clown decade, as my favorite YouTuber, Louis Laveau, says. I am not there with him when he says that we are entering the clown decade. I think this was the clown decade because nothing got done, and yet everyone will look back on this decade with awe and exuberance, and this is the decade where activism really took control. And instead, again, blatant utopianism came back into power after leaving us in the... Actually, never did. It hasn't left us since the 90s, unfortunately. Now that I really think about it, yeah, utopianism, it has just been a concept that we all seem to strive for and yet can never achieve. It's just so out of grasp. And more importantly, with this diversity shit, you see the people peddling diversity outright reject mixed race people as just white mutts. And I find that to be really hilarious as a mixed race American, that they have no home politically. The far right are like, you're not pure enough. And the far left are like, you're not pure enough. It almost kind of proves horseshoe theory to be correct. But with this diversity framework, kind of starting to wrap this commentary up, you see that there are problems with diversity. And so just saying diversity is our strength over and over, like you're some kind of infected zombie, isn't going to help make diversity a good thing. In fact, you are amplifying and signal boosting the fact that diversity isn't the greatest thing in the world and that maybe we should resegionate. So you might want to think about that one, progressives, before you, again, NPC-style attack me in the comment section. However, with all that being said, I truly believe that these are the reasons why diversity is not a strength and why, if you parrot that mantra, you're a useless utopian globalist that has no real thought process of their own. You are not looking at reality on the ground. You are instead living in your bubble, living in your urban echo chamber, looking at all the different colored people around you and going, oh, isn't this great? Isn't this wonderful? When instead, if you were much poorer than you are, urban progressive, you would see that, there are consequences to letting in the third world. There are consequences to not having shared values with your neighbors. There are consequences to diversity. So in conclusion, this is my overall feelings on diversity. I don't think I will ever really have to cover this again, and if I do, it will be more in the representation framework and entertainment, because this is what's being pushed now. The activists and the academics have fully pushed the diversity narrative, and now it is time for entertainment industry people to step up and represent all the different little groups. Like GLAAD has forced the entertainment industry into their demands of, if you do not have at least representational population of gay people and LGBTQ blah 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 in entertainment, by 2025 there will be quote unquote severe consequences. But by that point, I hope that, GLAAD has no fucking power in anything anymore. I hope a lot of these leftists and progressives kind of just get eternally ass blasted, because they will just cease to hold the narrative, because the narrative that diversity is a strength, as I've said in this commentary, is already crumbling. And with that collapse, you will see people turning on diversity, and it won't be fun. It won't be pretty. It will be very ugly, and you're not going to like the results of this. And in fact, you're going to probably cause a race war over it. So, yeah, good job with that, big guy. So, in conclusion, diversity is not a strength. I think I've already kind of concluded, but I just want to formally conclude that diversity is not a strength. And the reason why I want to reiterate it so much is so that it hammers into the progressive why diversity, again, is not a strength. So to the progressive, who is a quote-unquote champion of diversity, who, keeps the blinders on for all the Islamic problems that come with the new group of people coming in, I have one thing to say to you. You better tread lightly, because, oh man, diversity is not a strength.